Hey guys. So, real quick, we want to cover two big moments during the Civil War that are related to government policy, but also just really big pieces of American regalia. I don't even know that you are going to want to know. So, we have two that we really want to cover here. One is the Emancipation Proclamation, and the other one is the Gettysburg Address. So, during the war, we know that enslaved people are not allowed to be drafted because they're not citizens and they're not really being used by the South as anything other than what they are, enslaved. And so in 1863, Lincoln has really decided that it's time to take a stand against this issue. We started the war to keep the Union together. We've had some setbacks, but by 1863, things are really going in a certain way. And Lincoln decides that now is a great time in his inaugural address to address the issue of emancipation. And so, maybe it's not his inaugural address. Maybe I made that up. It is January, and inauguration's not till March, so maybe I made that up. But on January 1st, 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation is issued. And what it says is that enslaved people in Confederate states not conquered by the Union are free forever. This is important because essentially what he's doing is freeing enslaved people in a different country. And that's a lovely theory, but it technically doesn't do anything for those people who are enslaved in the border states, in the southern states who have already been conquered by the Union, and anybody who's enslaved outside of that area. Although at this point, there really shouldn't be anybody else enslaved. So it's this great idea, but all it's really doing is what it sounds like. It's proclaiming emancipation for the Southern Confederates when they return to the Union. And I did make this beautiful new map. I do need a lot more props. Like, this is not going to cut it. But turns out, if you don't plan ahead, you don't really have a lot of props. And while I'm great at planning ahead for lessons, I'm not great at planning ahead for videos. Okay? So, if you look at this lovely map here, our red states, these are our Confederate states. Our purple states are the border states. The blue states are all the Union states that no longer hold people in enslavement. And the yellow is unorganized, or as they like to call it, Indian territory. So the people in the North, the people in the blue states, see that Emancipation Proclamation as a strength to morality of the war. And this is going to give the North something to keep fighting for. The South had their glorious cause. The North had the Union, but now they have this. They have the moral upper hand. The South sees this as a blow to their morality, actually, because this essentially is telling them that when the war is over, enslavement is over too. There is no outcome here where you get to keep your people in enslavement. And so this ends any chance of negotiation of the war as well, because now they really have no choice but to keep fighting, right? Because they don't want to end the practice of enslavement. And if they negotiate the end of the war, they're still losing that. So they have nothing left to do except to continue to fight or surrender. And they don't want to surrender. Some people think Lincoln announced this just to incite rebellion by the enslaved people. But no matter what you do, there's always conspiracy. So, you know. And even within the Northerners, though, there are still some splits on how we feel about emancipation. The radical Republicans think that this isn't far enough. It's nothing. It just says that people that we don't even have control over will be free. Other Northerners say that this goes way too far. You don't have the jurisdiction to free anybody enslaved. Again, that wasn't the whole point of fighting the war. The war was to bring the Union back together. It wasn't to end enslavement. And now you've issued this proclamation that we're going to get rid of it. So we do see an influx of desertion in the Army by people who did not want to fight a war that was fighting to free enslaved people. They were fighting to preserve the Union. That's not what they signed up for. However, we do see a uptick in enrollment in black soldiers, and the Union Army especially starts to take in more black soldiers. A lot of whites in the North and the South are going to protest this move, but over 180,000 black soldiers serve in the Civil War. And yes, there's the movie Glory about that one regiment, but there's so many more people that served in it, and they're not technically allowed to fight, but they still serve in the military. And on that note, when things are really bad, in the summer of 63, with Gettysburg and that 3-day battle where so many men die, eventually Abraham Lincoln has to address that as well. And so on November 19th, 1863, Lincoln takes a trip out to Gettysburg, and he's there to speak after another man speaks. I don't remember the man's name. He was a Harvard president, or former Harvard president. He gave a 2-hour speech, but absolutely nobody remembers that. And really, people didn't actually remember what Lincoln said either. He was just dedicating the cemetery to the fallen soldiers. But what becomes known as the Gettysburg Address is Lincoln's dedication to the cemetery, and people didn't really appreciate it at the time, even though now it's considered one of the greatest speeches of all time, right? It's important due to the use of literary devices and rhetoric, and hopefully you understand what those are. This isn't an AP English class, it's an AP history class, but I don't have the full text here. Fun fact, when I was in middle school, I did make it to the city championship speech contest by reciting the Gettysburg Address. So I do know it's 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war testing whether this nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met here on a great battlefield of this war. We have come to dedicate a portion of this as, and then kind of trails off in the board. I mean, it was a great portion of this as a final resting place to those who gave their lives that that great nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow these grounds. Those who died here have dedicated, or consecrated these grounds far more than we have. Anyways, we're gonna get off topic here. That's not how the whole speech goes, and you should really look it up, because I am no Abraham Lincoln, and APUSH does expect you to know the Gettysburg Address, the point of it, what it was there, why he was there, all that stuff, and especially the importance of Gettysburg itself. But this is really the two big life-changing things, I would say, that come out of the Civil War that lead us to the Reconstruction era that we will get to next.